Welcome to today's Flex webinar. I'm your host, Marcus Merritt. Today, we're going to be talking about scheduled maintenance, how you get that set up and use that to help to manage maintenance on things you need to plan more regularly within your Flex system. Now, this is a new feature that has been added as part of the Flex 5 development, but it does build on the previous maintenance logging that you could do within Flex before. So let's go ahead and share my screen and start to look at that. So now with this, the first thing is every system is defaulted to being off or not turned on scheduled maintenance. Okay, so to turn it on in your system, you need to go to the main menu, to inventory and inventory settings. In this inventory settings, you'll see now I've already turned it on, but yours is likely off. So you need to make sure you take this to say scheduled maintenance enabled, yes, and turn that on. It'll happen. There's no save on this screen. Okay. Once that is enabled, we can go and find a piece of equipment. In this, I'm going to go to this half-ton chain motor, and we'll get a new tab called scheduled maintenance. Okay. That tab won't be there until that is enabled. Once there, we can pick a maintenance procedure or multiple if we want that need to be done on a regular basis for that. So we can go and use our search for the maintenance procedure. And that's going to bring our list of maintenance procedures. Okay. Now, as a note on this, and I'll jump over and show that in just a second. If you don't have the maintenance procedure you need, I'll go and review how to update and add those maintenance procedures. Okay. But for this one, we're going to say that we have this one that we call motor certification. Okay. We're going to say we need to do that. Okay. With that, we can go over here and you can set the time and the frequency. So you're saying I need motor certification performed every, and we want to say 1 year. But note, I can't do this in years. So I would need to say every 12 months. Okay. And then on this scheduled maintenance procedure with your regular schedule, you can set whether it is required or not. It defaults as not required, but I can then say this is required. It cannot go out the door unless this has been completed. Okay. So let's really quick back up and show that. So just a reminder for those maintenance procedures under main menu, inventory, and then maintenance procedures right next to the inventory settings where we were. So that's where we can have there. And there's a few in a default system that would be in there. You can, of course, open any one. We could go to that motor cert if we want to change any of the settings in this. If we're like, no, that cost is not correct, whatever we want to do on there. And then if we need to add any new ones, we can go down to the bottom here and create new maintenance procedures in our system. Okay. So whatever you need on that here. So we're going to go ahead and just assume we're good on these, and we're going to add one more, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that setting this scheduled maintenance does for us. Okay. So I'm going to also go to this speaker here, and I'm going to set a scheduled maintenance on it. But we're just going to say that I want to do preventative maintenance on this every month. Okay. Just once every month. But I am not going to make this one required. I'm just going to say it's nice to have someone kind of do a check, make sure things are looking good, it's working okay, nothing's rattled loose every month. But if we can't because we're too busy, no harm, no foul. Okay, so that's kind of the key we're going to do on this. Now, once we've done this, it's going to do a couple things for us. Okay. One of the first things is I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to try to put, because a lot of times these items are stored inside cases. So I'm going to open up a motor case to put this away. Okay. And this would generally be as part of something you do as the D-prep when it came back from an event. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a motor case that says I need to put some motors in here. And I'm going to go to try to put the motor in, and it says you can't put this in unless you've logged that maintenance, because we're in our normal process, and you'll this is better understood if you've watched my kind of scanning best practices webinar, that when you're putting away in the cases, that's you're putting yourself back to a zero state. You're putting yourself ready to go out on the show. So if you put this away digitally in here, you're assuming it's ready to go, and it's not been certified, so it's not ready to go. Okay. Now, the positive on this, if you're a team that has the ability to just, run these yourself, you can just go ahead and click and log the maintenance. You can do the certification, and then you can log the maintenance on this. Or if for some reason you sent them out to a third party to do that, and now you just need to actually log it, and you have the information in front of you that was, tagged on the motor itself. So I can just go ahead in here and say logged this. Now, on this, one thing that we've set kind of as a practice recently, and I really have been a big fan of it, so we don't make more procedures. We basically just want to say in here, what's the summary of what happened? Well, we went and got it motor certified, or basically tested, and it passed. Okay. It passed, or it met its certification. So that's all I really need to say. I can put more details if I, want to say, sent to a third party for cert and passed without repair, but not really required. Of course, in this, if I sent to a third party, maybe they charged me a cost and I want to log that. Importantly here, it's still in fine condition. I'm just logging it. Note here also in the service date that it put right now in there. But if they actually did it, a week ago, I could go in, oh, actually it was completed on, Tuesday or whatever. And so I can update that. It's going to assume right then, but if it was done some other person, but some other time, you can update that service date. So I can go ahead then and say add, and now it's going to go ahead and let me scan that motor into here. Okay. In the same way, we're going to do one more. Remember, yeah. And I'm going to just try to really quick on here, just say passed, and we're going to go ahead and log it. I'm not going to put the rest of it because we're just trying to test this. So that's kind of the first thing there that it's going to do. Okay. Now, the other thing for this, and what I'm going to do, well, I'm going to package my speakers, and we're going to talk about those two. So 00147. There's my speaker case. Now, on this, because we put it required no, it's saying, hey, you've got past due maintenance, but you don't have to log it because we didn't make it required. So I can just say, hey, we're busy, I don't have time, and I'm just going to go ahead and scan it anyway. Okay. Same thing here. I'm going to go scan this in. I'm going to just bypass it. I'm going to go ahead and put my jumper in, and now that case is going to be ready. Okay. Now, the one other thing, and I'm actually going to just go and add myself one more motor for this. Then I'm going to do the important thing. Now, one thing just to note, this is kind of a good note on this. When it's doing this testing back, it's first looking for that type of maintenance being in the maintenance log for that serial unit. Okay. As the note on this, must be done on serial units, cannot be done on anything non-serialized. You can't track maintenance on non-serialized equipment. If there isn't that, then the next thing it's going to check for is a purchase date. Did you enter a purchase date? Okay. If you failed to enter a purchase date, then it's going to look for the date created. But in this case, if I just put this in here without a purchase date, the date created is today, and it doesn't think I need to do this maintenance for a year. So I'm going to intentionally take this purchase date, and I'm going to kick it back over a year, something in here, and say that I bought it on there. I think that's the same I put on those others, 4-1, and we're going to go ahead and add that to the system. So now it's going to need to have that maintenance. So the next thing on here is I'm going to go to prep this show, and I've already started pulling some of it. Okay, I've already started scanning some of it, but I'm going to go in here to scan my items, right? So one thing I'm going to scan, and I did not bother to double check that. It's my bad. What was the barcode of the one I just made is 159. So I'm going to go to scan my new one. So this is stating if I did it, if I had it in something that wasn't in a case, then I was just scanning it to the show. It's going to do the same thing as earlier. Okay. Now in this case, I'm just going to cancel and go, oh, I guess I got to go get a different one. That one needs to be certified. We're going to take that elsewhere. So I'm going to actually scan my case that was there. And this is the one I logged them. So it went ahead and let me put them in here. Okay. Now I can scan my other speakers here. So I 147. And on this again, even if they're inside the container and they're past due, it's going to bring this up. So this is what happens if when I put it in the container, when it last came back, it was fine. It was still within its time cycle. But now it sat there for 2 months before I go to send it out the door. And now I go to send it out the door and it says, oh, this now is past due for maintenance and it needs to have this. Now, again, on this one, because they are not required, I can just bypass it. But if they had been required, this would say, no, you cannot bypass it. You cannot scan this. Okay. If for some reason it had a mix of things, it's going to not let you bypass if anything is required. But if you do that required, then it will become passable even if any of the not required ones are still on there. Again, in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and bypass these, but it is going to remind you of that. Okay, so that's the key thing of it's going to stop you going into a case. It's going to stop you going onto a show. It's also going to stop you going onto a show if it's inside a case, if it has past due maintenance. Okay, so you're going to be reminded of that need to keep on top of that. But again, it does make it so you can quickly hit the button and log the maintenance right there where you're at. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and finalize this event. And we're going to start to talk about some of the other things for it. So that's kind of the basics. I set up the maintenance. I set whether it's required, whether it's not required. And then I start to, have it trigger things when I go to scan items into cases or onto events, okay, onto shows. Now, the next thing with that is that I can then run reports to help myself stay on top of it. So I'm not only triggered this by when I go onto shows, but you can go, oh, we have a little bit of downtime. Let me check what's got upcoming maintenance and let me go and look at that. So a couple things on that. If we go to our main menu and our main reports, there's 3 main scheduled maintenance reports. If we go to here, scheduled, we've got our overview, our past due, and our upcoming. Okay. So the first of this, the overview, is this is just going to say, and we can say to sort by procedure or sort by group on there. It's going to default kind of by group if we don't. I'm just going to leave it as the default. This is just going to remind you what items do you have set that need any kind of maintenance. And this would just help remind you, do I have too many things turned on for maintenance? Do I have things not on maintenance? It's not reminding me what's going on, right? It's just saying I've got this speaker that I have preventative maintenance once a month, not required. I've got these Mackies that I put both pat testing required and cleaning not required. And then I put these motors every 12 months required. Okay. So it's just reminding me what I have planned in the system. Do I have ones that I go, oh, I think we have some other items I should turn on maintenance, or, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't really need that item on maintenance. People have been complaining about it. I really realize that I probably don't need to have that on such a regular maintenance. Okay. So that's that overview, just reminding what you have kind of set up in the system so you don't have to go and open every item to figure that out. Okay. Now, next, and this one is obviously fairly valuable, is just a, hey, let me just double check what's past due. What have we missed? Okay. Now, the important thing on this is you can say to include items currently out. So I want to include and remind me anything that's currently scanned out for a show. I'm going to say yes in this because I want to specifically make sure it brings up a couple items. I scanned a couple of the motors before I turned that on during this call. And so I want to make sure those show up for me. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. And so now here, I've got a bunch of these. Now you saw in that other list, I put these things on these Mackies and I didn't do anything with those. And so they're in here. Now it's reminding me on each of these, not required, required, not required, not required, right? So we know which things are required and not required, but then it's stating all of the different units, right? So I have 3 of my 5 motors have not been taken care of, right? These 2 Mackie mixers, I think they're the only 2 I have in there. And then these of my speakers, which I think is all of them. I don't think I've done any of this anytime recently. Okay. So that kind of just helps remind me, hey, what's past due and what do I need to then go to my maintenance guy and start getting tested, start reviewing. Okay. The next thing I can do is once you get to where you're staying on top of this on a more regular basis, then you go, okay, well, I want to make it when I have my gaps, I look at my upcoming, what's coming up that I need to hit. Okay. Now in this might end up coming up blank because all of these are kind of past due on this. So let me, for this, let's make a really wide, let's make this go for over a year. Normally this would not be an issue. But because I'm not actively managing my little demo system here, it's not going to do. Let's also say include items currently out. On this, let's see if I can at least get something on this report. Maybe those motors that I just, so the motors that I just tagged for, because I was like, because now they basically need to be done a year from now, that's my upcoming. But normally you would just be checking, well, what's coming up in the next month? And you'd see what's there because you're staying on top of your system because it's a real system and not a demo. Okay. So that there, kind of what's going on in that. Okay. The next report, and this is a key thing that was added since the initial release of it, but something we thought that would be nice. This is especially good for companies that tend to do long rentals, tours, things where gear's out of the shop for a long period of time. And you may still want to have some kind of maintenance that you stay on top of relative to that. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go and open my manifest for my show that I scanned out. And what we can do is we made a modification to the internal manifest that everybody's probably already seen this before, but we made a modification. So now if I leave these all as saying no, this is then saying this works the way it used to work, nothing changed. But if I go, oh, now I want to include the service dates, I want to check on this, this report and have it pull to me which things have upcoming service. And maybe I want to, at the next leg of that tour, I want to put in some replacement pieces of gear, or I want to see if we can get somebody to just pull it to the side and do a PAT test or a QC or something. So we can go in here and we're going to say include service dates. Yes. I'm going to say, no, don't show me only past due, show me everything. And then you can say only show me unreturned items because we're only being concerned with that. Most of the time I would say that, but it doesn't really matter here. So I'm going to leave that there. On that. And we're going to go ahead and still run it as the PDF. And so now we'll see that this converted over. It isn't exactly now the list of what was scanned out, but instead is the list of procedures. Okay. Now it does specifically say we only do, it reminds there's no non-serialized items. So even though we had scanned some non-serialized items, they will never show up on this report. It reminds that items in red have past due things on it. It also looks like, and I don't remember for sure on this, but it looks like we have this set where it's only pulling up required maintenance. It's ignoring because we have those speakers on this show, but they don't have required maintenance, just unrequired maintenance. So we're saying, let's only check on ones that we say are required. If it's not required, we don't need to stress coming back and bringing that back from our tour for it. But ones that have required, we maybe want to check these. You know, if we have some kind of an accident, we don't want our motors to be out of certification on this. Okay. So that's kind of the key. So these are past due. And then these, it's just reminding, yeah, they have, but they're good for 363 more days, 365 more days. That helps me know. And again, you could set that to say, only show me the past due on that. But a lot of times it's worth knowing, like, do I have something coming up soon? And you see this number is small, then you know where that is. But again, this is saying this is 140 days, 104 days past due, 133 days past due. It's when the maintenance was due, what's going on, etc. So that's another nice one, again, for those companies that do long rentals, tours, things like that, and you want to stay on top of those required maintenance items. Okay. And so with that, that's kind of the key to it. I mean, I'm sure people can think of other things they want to do as far as where you want to keep track of scheduled maintenance and that, but that's the core of what the functionality is. It is something the customer had been requesting for a long time. And so that's something that while we were doing some improvements in Flex 5, we went ahead and added that development in. Thank you, everyone, for attending the webinar and for watching. As always, if you need anything else, it would be great to have you reach out to support@flexrentalsolutions.com. For comments on future webinars or on this webinar, you can reach out to training@flexrentalsolutions.com. And you can view articles and other help related things at our helpcenter.flexrentalsolutions.com.